On a farm full of past secrets, a loyal horse senses danger before anyone else. But what he does at the crucial moment will leave you speechless. The sun rose lazily over the hills of Kentucky, painting the pastures of Wilson Ranch with golden light. Emma watched from the window of her second-floor bedroom in the main house as the first rays illuminated the stables where the country's most valuable horses rested. Her small fingers drummed on the armrest of her wheelchair, following a rhythm only she knew. "Good morning, sweetheart," said Sarah, entering the room with a breakfast tray. "Did you sleep well?" Emma turned, her brown eyes shining with an intelligence that impressed anyone who truly knew her. "Mom, Thunder didn't sleep well last night. He was restless." Sarah frowned, setting the tray on the small table by the window. "How do you know that, honey? You didn't leave your room after dinner." "I can feel when he's not well," Emma answered with the naturalness of someone discussing the weather. "It's like he talks to me, you know." Down below, in the main courtyard, Richard Wilson walked with long, decisive strides, inspecting every detail of the facilities. At 52, he carried himself with the posture of a man who had built an empire with his own hands and wouldn't tolerate imperfections. His grey hair was perfectly combed, and his suit, even though it was only 8 in the morning, didn't show a single wrinkle. "Tyler," he shouted to the teenager sweeping the courtyard, "are the stalls in Section A up?" "To the standard I requested?" "Yes, Mr. Wilson," replied Tyler, a skinny, agile 16-year-old boy. "I finished cleaning everything before 7. "Excellent. And remember, when the journalists arrive next week, I want everything to be impeccable. This event will put our ranch on the international map." Tyler nodded, but something in Richard's tense expression bothered him. He had worked there for 2 years and had never seen his boss so nervous about a presentation. In the main stable, Derek, the new handler hired 3 months ago, was adjusting Thunder's saddle. The horse, a majestic black Arabian stallion, shook, his head impatiently. His dilated nostrils and alert eyes revealed contained energy, almost explosive. "Easy, boy," murmured Derek, his rough voice contrasting with the soft tone he used around Richard. "Today you're going to train properly." Thunder neighed loudly, a sound that echoed through the facilities and reached Emma's room. The girl startled, spilling her hot chocolate. "He's afraid," she whispered, her eyes fixed in the direction of the stable. "Afraid of what, Emma?" asked Sarah, cleaning up the spilled liquid. "I don't know, but he doesn't like that new man." Sarah followed her daughter's gaze through the window. Derek was leading Thunder toward the training track, but there was something about the way he held the reins that made her uncomfortable. It was too firm, almost aggressive. "Richard never told me much about this new employee," she murmured to herself. At the track, Richard waited with his arms crossed. Next to him, Dr. Mitchell, the veterinarian who had replaced Dr. Thompson a few weeks ago, observed the horse with a notepad in his hands. "How are the tests you ordered?" asked Richard. "Within expectations," replied Dr. Mitchell without raising his eyes from the paper. "The new supplements I suggested will enhance his performance for the event." "Perfect. I can't have any unpleasant surprises in front of the European investors." Tyler, who was passing by with a wheelbarrow of hay, slowed down to better hear the conversation. There was something in the exchange of glances between the 3 men that didn't seem natural to him. Back in her room, Emma had turned her attention to her sketchbook. Her small hands moved the pencil with surprising precision, creating lines that formed Thunder's silhouette. But this time the horse wasn't in his usual majestic pose. He was downcast, with dark shadows around him. "What a beautiful drawing." "Honey?" said Sarah, looking over her daughter's shoulder. "He's sad," explained Emma, adding more details to the shadows. "And there's someone behind him that he can't see clearly." Sarah felt a shiver run down her spine. Emma's drawings always had something prophetic about them, as if the girl captured emotions and situations that escaped the adults. "Emma, how about if you stay here at home during next week's event?" she suggested, trying to sound casual. "There. Will be a lot of people, a lot of noise, but I want to see Thunder," protested the girl. "He'll need me." "Need you for what?" Emma stopped drawing and looked directly into her mother's eyes. "To not feel alone when everything happens. Outside, the sound of hooves on the track marked the rhythm of the morning exercises. But both Sarah and Emma knew this wasn't an ordinary day at Wilson Ranch. Something was changing, and the mysterious connection between the girl and the horse would be the key to discovering what. Richard was really planning for the event that promised to be the most important in the property's history. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us a like. Let us know what city you're watching from. We'll continue. 3 days had passed since the unsettling conversation in Emma's room, and the ranch's routine seemed to follow its normal course. However, small details were beginning to form a disturbing mosaic for those who knew how to observe. Tyler was finishing feeding the horses in Section B when he noticed that Derek always arrived before the other employees and left last. On that Thursday morning, he decided to arrive earlier to observe what the man did alone with Thunder. Hidden behind the feed storage, he saw Derek enter the stallion's stall, carrying a small black box. The man looked around, making sure he was alone, before opening the object and pointing something toward the animal. Thunder immediately began to get agitated, shaking his head from side to side and stomping his hooves on the ground with increasing force. Derek observed his reaction with clinical attention, taking notes in a small notebook. "That's right, big guy," he murmured. "You're learning just fine." Tyler frowned. This didn't seem like normal training. When Derek finally put away the device and left the stall, the boy waited a few minutes before approaching. Thunder was still agitated, sweating and with wide eyes. "Hey, beautiful boy," whispered Tyler, carefully extending his hand. "What did he do to you?" At that same moment, Emma woke up startled in her room. She had dreamed of Thunder running in circles, chased by a sound she couldn't identify, but that made her heart race with fear. "Mom!" she shouted. Sarah appeared at the door in seconds, still in her robe. "What is it, sweetheart? Did you have a nightmare?" "Thunder is suffering," said Emma, tears running down her face. "Someone is hurting him, but not with their hands. It's like an invisible pain." Sarah sat on the edge of the bed and hugged her daughter. "Emma, maybe you're imagining things. Your father takes very good care of the horses." "Daddy doesn't know," insisted the girl. "He doesn't see what I see." Later, during lunch, the family gathered in the dining room. Richard was particularly expansive, talking animatedly about the preparations for the event. "The journalists from Europe arrive Monday," he announced, cutting his steak with precision. "And we have confirmation from 3 Middle Eastern investors. If all goes well, we'll double our international client portfolio." "And will Thunder participate in the main presentation?" asked Sarah, watching her husband's reaction. "Of course, he's our star. Derek has been working specifically with him to ensure a perfect performance." Emma, who was playing with the food on her plate, looked up. "Daddy, why does Mr. Derek use that little box near Thunder?" Richard's fork stopped in the air for a fraction of a second before he continued chewing normally. "What little box, sweetie?" "A black one. He points it at Thunder, and the horse gets nervous." "Must be some measuring equipment," replied Richard, but his voice sounded less natural. "Nothing you should worry about." Sarah noticed the subtle change in her husband's tone and decided to change the subject. "Richard, I've been thinking about taking Emma to spend a few days at my sister's house. With all this activity for the event." "Excellent idea," he interrupted too quickly. "Fewer distractions, better for everyone." "I don't want to go," protested Emma. "I want to stay here with the horses." "You'll go, and that's final," said Richard with a firmness that surprised even Sarah. "The event is for adults. Children have no place at this kind of occasion." Emma lowered her eyes, but Sarah noticed that her daughter wasn't intimidated, just thoughtful. She knew that expression. It was the same one Emma made when trying to solve a complex puzzle. In the afternoon, while Richard was in a meeting in Seoul town, Sarah decided to walk around the ranch with Emma. They passed by the main stable where Thunder was in his stall. The horse, normally imposing and proud, seemed dejected. "See, Mum," whispered Emma, "he's not well." "Maybe he's just tired from training," suggested Sarah, but her own voice sounded uncertain. Tyler appeared at that moment carrying a bucket. "Serve water." "Good afternoon, Mrs. Wilson, Emma." "Hi, Tyler," said Emma, smiling for the first time that day. "Is Thunder sick?" The boy hesitated, looking around before answering. "Not exactly sick, but something strange is happening with him, especially when Mr. Derek trains alone." Sarah moved closer. "Strange how?" "Well, I shouldn't be talking about this, but—" Tyler lowered his voice. "There are days when I hear Thunder neighing in a different way. It's not from pain, it's more like fear. And it always happens when no one else is around, just Derek." "Fear of what?" asked Emma, her eyes bright with interest. "I can't explain it right, but horses don't get scared of experienced handlers, right? Unless—" Tyler didn't finish the sentence, but the silence that followed was eloquent enough. That night, after Emma fell asleep, Sarah stayed on the balcony of her room, watching the lights of the stable. A growing uneasiness took hold of her chest. Small pieces of a puzzle were beginning to fit together. Derek's sudden hiring, the replacement of the trusted veterinarian, the insistence on keeping Emma away from the event, and now these observations about Thunder's strange behavior. She decided it was time to investigate on her own. The next morning, when Richard left for his preparatory meetings, she would have a longer conversation with Tyler. If something wrong was happening in her own home, she was going to find out what. On Friday morning, Sarah waited for Richard to leave for his meeting with the event organizers before seeking out Tyler. She found the boy organizing equipment in the storage room, apparently absorbed in his thoughts. "Tyler, can I talk to you?" He turned, surprised to see her alone in the storage room. "Of course, Mrs. Wilson. Did something happen?" "I want you to tell me everything you've observed about Derek and Thunder. Don't omit anything." Tyler hesitated, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "Are you sure? Mr. Wilson won't like it if he knows I'm talking about these things." "Leave my husband to me. What did you see?" The boy took a deep breath before starting. "Well, besides that black box that Emma mentioned, there are other things. Derek always arrives very early and spends at least an hour alone with Thunder. He doesn't let anyone approach during these special training sessions." "What kind of training?" "They don't seem like normal training sessions. Thunder gets agitated, sweating, and then seems kind of apathetic, as if he'd been drugged or something." Sarah felt a chill in her stomach. "Continue." "And there's more. Last week I was passing by the equipment room at night and saw a light inside. I went to check and heard Derek talking on the phone. He was saying something about conditioned response protocol and ensuring results on Sunday." "Sunday is the day of the event," murmured Sarah. "Exactly. And there's another strange thing. Have you noticed that some parts of the fence on the main track have been replaced?" Sarah frowned. "No. Why?" "The new fixings are different. They look removable, as if someone wanted to be able to remove part of the fence quickly." At that moment, Emma appeared at the entrance of the storage room, skillfully maneuvering her wheelchair. "Mom, can I talk to you guys?" "Of course, my love. What is it?" Emma approached, her expression too serious for a 7-year-old child. "I drew something else last night," she said, taking a folded paper from her pocket. "I wanted to show you." Sarah unfolded the drawing and felt her heart race. The image showed Thunder on a track, but this time there were people around, small figures that seemed to be running, and in the center, a shape that resembled Emma in her wheelchair, surrounded by wavy lines that could represent movement or danger. "Emma, what does this drawing mean?" "I don't know how to explain it right, but it's like Thunder is trying to warn me about something. He doesn't want me to be on the track on Sunday." Tyler looked at Sarah with growing concern. "Mrs. Wilson, there's one more thing. Yesterday, I saw Dr. Mitchell leaving your husband's office with a very thick folder. He seemed nervous." "Dr. Mitchell," repeated Sarah, remembering the sudden replacement of the family's veterinarian. "Yes, and you know what's strange? I've never seen him really examining Thunder. He just takes notes and gives instructions to Derek." Sarah began to connect the dots. The simultaneous hiring of Derek and Dr. Mitchell, Emma being sent away, the modifications to the fence, Thunder's altered behavior. "Tyler, could you investigate a little more? Find out what's in that black box?" "I can try, but it will be risky." "I want to help too," said Emma, determined. "No, sweetheart. It's dangerous for you. Mom, Thunder trusts me. If something bad is planned for him, I need to help. At that moment, they heard the sound of Richard's car returning earlier than expected. Tyler quickly put away the tools, while Sarah folded Emma's drawing. We'll continue this conversation later, she whispered, and Tyler, be very careful with what you're going to do. In the afternoon, during snack time, Richard was visibly tense. He constantly answered calls and made notes in a notebook he always kept close. How are the preparations? Asked Sarah, trying to sound casual. Complex but under control, he replied, without raising his eyes from his notes. Dr. Mitchell ensured that Thunder will be in perfect condition for the presentation. What kind of condition? Richard finally looked at her, and Sarah noticed something different in his eyes, a coldness that wasn't there before. Conditions to impress. This event will define the future of our ranch, Sarah. I can't allow anything to go wrong. Anything like what? Any unforeseen circumstance that might compromise the image we want to convey. Emma, who was quietly playing with her toys in the corner of the room, looked up at that moment. Daddy, Thunder doesn't want to be part of your event, she said with the typical honesty of children. Richard turned to her with an expression that made Sarah instinctively pull back. How can you know what a horse wants or doesn't want? I feel it, replied Emma without being intimidated, and he's scared. Fear is nonsense. Horses are animals, Emma. They do what they're trained to do. But Thunder isn't just an animal, insisted the girl. He has feelings, just like us. Richard closed his notebook forcefully. Enough of this ridiculous conversation. Emma, you will not participate in the event, and that's final, and I don't want to hear any more of these fantasies about talking horses. After Richard left the room, Sarah approached Emma. Sweetheart, what else has Thunder shown you? Emma looked around, making sure they were alone. He showed me bad men doing bad things with a box that makes noise. And he showed me that I need to be there to protect people from the bad noise. The girl's words echoed in Sarah's mind for the rest of the day. That night, she decided she needed to act. If Richard was planning something that could put someone in danger, she couldn't just stand by. It was time to discover the truth, whatever the cost. The waning moon barely illuminated the ranch courtyard when Tyler decided to put his plan into action. It was 2 a.m. on Saturday, and he knew everyone was sleeping deeply in the main house. He had spent the entire day thinking about the conversation with Sarah and Emma's disturbing words. Using a small flashlight and keeping to the shadows, he first headed to Thunder's stable. The horse was awake, which wasn't unusual, but there was something different about his posture. He was more alert, his ears constantly moving as if expecting something. Hey, boy, whispered Tyler, approaching the stall. What is it? Can't sleep either. Thunder turned his head in his direction, and Tyler swore he saw relief in the animal's eyes. It was as if the horse recognized an ally in him. Leaving the stable, Tyler headed to the storage room where Derek kept his personal equipment. The door was locked, but the boy knew every corner of that place and was aware of a side window that never closed properly. Inside the storage room, his flashlight revealed something that left him perplexed. Besides the normal horse handling equipment, there was an improvised table with electronic devices he had never seen before. The black box that Emma had mentioned was there, connected to headphones and a small amplifier. Tyler photographed everything with his cell phone before moving closer to examine it better. There were labels on the devices with technical inscriptions: ultrasonic frequency generator, directional amplifier, conditioning timer. Next to the equipment, he found a notebook with detailed notes. The pages were filled with schedules, sound frequencies, and observations about Thunder's behavior. One page in particular caught his attention. Day 15, frequency, 25 kHz for 3 minutes. Response, moderate agitation, excessive sweating. Recovery time, 12 minutes. Day 16, frequency 28 kHz for 5 minutes. Response, severe agitation, attempt to escape. Recovery time, 18 minutes. Day 17, complete protocol implemented. Animal responds adequately to sound stimulus. Ready for final phase. Tyler felt his stomach turn. This wasn't training, it was conditioning. They were deliberately stressing thunder with sounds that only he could hear, creating a Pavlovian panic response. He continued flipping through the notebook and found a schedule for Sunday, the day of the event. 9. Animal preparation with mild sedation to maintain initial control. 14:30. Positioning of sound equipment at strategic points on the track. 15. Start of presentation. Wait for signal for activation. 15:15. Protocol activation. Estimated duration, 3 to 5 minutes for maximum effect. 15:20. Neutralization of the situation as planned. On the last page, there was a diagram of the track with points marked in red and notes about impact areas and priority evacuation zones. In the center of the drawing, there was a circle with the letter E, probably referring to Emma. Tyler photographed all the relevant pages, his heart beating rapidly. It was clear that there was an elaborate plan involving thunder, but the ultimate goal wasn't entirely clear to him. What did neutralization of the situation mean? And why was Emma specifically marked in the diagram? When he was about to leave, he heard footsteps approaching the storage room. Quickly, he turned off the flashlight and hid behind a pile of feed bags. The door opened and Derek entered, accompanied by Dr. Mitchell. "Is everything prepared for tomorrow?" asked the veterinarian, his voice low but clear in the night silence. "Perfectly," replied Derek. "The animal is conditioned, the equipment tested and positioned. When we activate the protocol, the reaction will be immediate and intense. And are you sure you'll be able to control him afterward?" "Doctor, after the situation develops as planned, controlling the horse will be the least of our problems. The important thing is that it looks like a natural accident." "Accident?" Dr. Mitchell's voice sounded tense. Mr. Wilson was very clear about the objectives. He wants the presentation to be memorable and certain, dissonant elements to be removed from the equation definitively, but appearing circumstantial. Tyler felt a chill run down his spine. Dissonant elements could only mean Emma. "And if something goes wrong," insisted Dr. Mitchell, "nothing will go wrong. The horse will react exactly as it was conditioned. People will panic, they'll run, and in the confusion, well, accidents happen, especially with people who have reduced mobility." The two men checked the equipment one last time before leaving. Tyler waited long minutes in the dark before moving, ensuring they had completely gone. When he finally left the storage room, his legs were shaking. Now he understood everything. Richard was planning to use thunder as a weapon, conditioning the animal to have a violent reaction during the event. In the ensuing confusion, Emma would be... He couldn't even complete the thought. He ran back to his house but couldn't sleep. As soon as dawn broke, he sought out Sarah. He found her in the kitchen, drinking coffee alone. "Mrs. Wilson, I need to talk to you urgently," he said, still breathless. "Tyler? What happened? You're pale." "I found out what they're planning, and it's worse than we imagined." Sarah set down her cup, seeing the seriousness in the boy's eyes. "Tell me everything." As Tyler related his nighttime discovery, showing the photos on his cell phone, Sarah felt a mixture of horror and anger growing in her chest. The man she had married, the father of her child, was planning something monstrous using an innocent animal as an instrument. "We have to do something," she said when Tyler finished. "But what? If we confront Mr. Wilson directly, he might anticipate the plans or move everything." "Then we'll have to be smarter than him," said Sarah, an iron determination taking over her voice. "If my husband wants to play this game, he'll discover that. He completely underestimated his own family." The event would be the next day, Sunday. They had less than 24 hours to prevent a tragedy that could cost her daughter's life. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us a like. Let us know what city you're watching from. We'll continue. Saturday dawned grey with heavy clouds promising rain. Sarah had barely slept after Tyler's revelation, and her mind wouldn't stop formulating plans to prevent what Richard was plotting. She was having breakfast in the kitchen when the housekeeper, Mrs. Jenkins, appeared with a confused expression. "Mrs. Wilson, I found this under your bedroom door," she said, handing over a white envelope with no identification. Sarah frowned. Who would place a letter there? She opened it carefully and felt her heart race as she read the handwritten message. Don't bring your daughter to the track on Sunday. Trust me. There was no signature, just these words written with a shaky hand, as if the person had been nervous or in a hurry. Mrs. Jenkins, what time did you arrive today? At 6, as always, ma'am. The letter was already there. Sarah tucked the paper in her pocket, her mind racing. Someone else knew about Richard's plan and was trying to warn her. But who? And why didn't they identify themselves? She found Emma in the garden, drawing in her notebook under the shade of a tree. The girl was concentrating, her tongue appearing at the corner of her mouth as she always did when dedicated to something important. What are you drawing today, sweetheart? It's thunder again, said Emma, showing the paper, but this time there are more people around, and look, she pointed to the corner of the page. There's someone hiding here, watching everything. The drawing showed the ranch track with several small figures representing people. Thunder was in the center, clearly agitated, and there was a figure half hidden behind a fence, as if watching the events. Emma, who is this hidden person? I don't know the name, but it's someone who wants to help. They're not bad like the others. At that moment, Tyler came running through the garden. Mrs. Wilson, I need to talk to you. Something happened. Emma looked at the boy with interest. Tyler, do you also feel that today is different? I do, Emma, and that's why I need to talk to both of you. Sarah looked around, making sure Richard wasn't nearby. Let's go to the old office in the library. No one will interrupt us there. The three headed to a small room at the back of the house that Sarah had previously used for her personal projects. Once there, she showed the anonymous letter to Tyler. Someone else knows what's happening, she said, watching the boy's reaction. It could be some employee who's suspicious of Derek, suggested Tyler. There are people who've been at the ranch for a long time, who know the right way to treat horses. Mum, said Emma, pulling at her mother's blouse, I want to help save Thunder. Emma, it's dangerous. But I'm the only one who can understand what he's feeling, and besides, the girl smiled mischievously, I have something you don't know about. What do you have? Emma took out her tablet, a birthday present Richard had given her a few months ago. Daddy installed an app here so I could see the horses when I can't leave my room. But he doesn't know that I figured out how to access all the ranch's cameras. Sarah and Tyler looked at each other, surprised. All the cameras? Asked Sarah. Yes, I can see the stables, the track, the storage rooms, even Daddy's office when he forgets to turn off his computer. Tyler moved closer, excited. Emma, does that mean you can record what happens? I can. The app saves everything in the tablet's memory. Sarah felt a spark of hope. Finally, they had a way to document what Richard was planning. Tyler, could you go back to the storage room tonight and get physical evidence? Maybe that device or the notebook? I can try, but it will be risky, especially the night before the event. And I'll use the tablet to record everything I can, said Emma, determined, especially if they test the equipment today. No, said Sarah firmly. You won't expose yourself to any danger, Emma. You can record from a distance, but no getting close to the stables or the track. But, Mom, no buts. It's either this way or we do nothing. Emma pouted, but agreed. All right, but if Thunder needs me... If Thunder needs anything, Tyler and I will take care of him, said Sarah. Your part is to stay safe and document everything. They spent the rest of the morning working out the details of the plan. Tyler would return to the storage room during the early morning to photograph and, if possible, take the notebook. Emma would use the tablet to monitor activities and record anything suspicious. Sarah, meanwhile, would try to access Richard's personal computer to look for more evidence. And after we have the proof? Asked Tyler. We'll go to the police before the event starts, said Sarah. With solid evidence, they'll have to act. But what if we don't make it in time? Worried Emma. We will, affirmed Sarah with more confidence than she actually felt. We have to. That afternoon, Richard came home earlier than usual, visibly tense. He carried several folders and was constantly on his cell phone discussing final preparations. During dinner, he barely touched his food. Tomorrow will be a long day, he said, more to himself than to his family. But if everything goes as planned, it will be a milestone in the ranch's history. Richard, said Sarah carefully, I'm sure Emma will be safer at my sister's house tomorrow." "Perfect," he replied, without even looking at his daughter. "Fewer complications." Emma lowered her eyes, pretending to be hurt, but Sarah noticed the determined gleam in her eyes. Her daughter was stronger and smarter than Richard imagined. After dinner, while Richard shut himself in his office, the three conspirators quickly gathered in the kitchen. "Is everything ready for tonight?" whispered Sarah. "I'm ready," said Tyler. "And I'll start recording as soon as it gets dark," added Emma. "Then God help us," murmured Sarah, "because tomorrow we're going to need all the luck in the world to stop this madness." Outside, distant, thunder announced the approaching storm. It was an appropriate omen for the night ahead of them, a night that would determine the fate of everyone at Wilson Ranch. The rain began to fall around 11 o'clock, creating the perfect sound. Curtain for the clandestine activities they had planned. In Emma's room, the three conspirators prepared for the most risky mission of their lives. "Remember," whispered Sarah, "each one sticks to their part of the plan. No improvising or unnecessary heroics." Emma already had her tablet turned on, the ranch's cameras appearing in small windows on the screen. "I can see everything from here," she said quietly. "Derek is in the main storage room, but Dr. Mitchell left a few minutes ago." "Perfect," said Tyler, wearing a dark raincoat. "I'll wait for him to leave the area before I go in." Sarah checked her cell phone. "Richard has been in his office for 2 hours. When he goes to sleep, I'll try to access his computer." The next few minutes dragged like hours. Emma narrated in whispers the movements she saw on the cameras, while Tyler waited for the right moment to act. Finally, Derek left the storage room and headed to his house at the back of the property. "Now," said Emma, "the area is clear." Tyler silently left through the back door. The rain soaked him in seconds, but it also completely masked his movements. He reached the storage room and found the side window still poorly closed, just like before. Inside, his trembling fingers handled his cell phone camera, photographing all the equipment again. This time, however, he had the courage to take Derek's notebook. It was risky, but they needed physical evidence. Quickly flipping through the pages, he found even more disturbing information. There was a detailed schedule not just for the event, but for the days following. References to elimination of problematic witnesses and evidence cleanup were scattered throughout the notes. An entire page was dedicated to neutralization, protocol, subject E, with technical details about how to use Thunder's reaction to create a situation that would look like a natural accident. The clinical coldness of the language made Tyler feel nauseous. He photographed everything and carefully put the notebook back exactly where he had found it. He was about to leave when he heard voices approaching. Quickly, he hid behind the equipment. Derek returned, accompanied by another man Tyler didn't recognize. "Final test before tomorrow," said the stranger. "The client is nervous and wants guarantees that everything will work perfectly." "Don't worry," replied Derek, turning on the black box. "I'll activate it for a few seconds just to confirm the animal's response." In the main house, Emma saw, through the cameras, Thunder becoming violently agitated in his stall. The horse was kicking his hooves against the walls and frantically shaking his head. "They're testing it now," she whispered to Sarah. "Thunder is desperate." "Are you recording?" "Everything, and the audio is capturing well too." In the storage room, Tyler listened to the conversation between the two men as they observed the horse's reaction through a small camera they had installed in the stall. "Perfect," said the stranger. "With that intensity of response, there won't be any doubt it was an accident, especially with all the modifications we made to the track." "And the veterinarian confirmed there won't be detectable traces in the animal's blood?" asked Derek. "Doctor Mitchell guaranteed it. The compounds we're using are metabolized quickly. A few hours after the event, any examination will be inconclusive." Tyler recorded the entire conversation on his cell phone, his heart beating so hard he feared they might hear it. When they finally left, he waited long minutes before moving. Meanwhile, in the main house, Sarah waited for Richard to go up to the bedroom. When she finally heard his footsteps on the stairs, she waited 15 more minutes before silently going down to his office. Richard's computer was password protected, but Sarah knew her husband's habits. She first tried Emma's date of birth, then the ranch's founding date. On the third attempt using their wedding date, she gained access. What she found exceeded her worst expectations. The recent emails folder revealed extensive correspondence with a company called Specialized Technical Solutions, which apparently offered behavioral adjustment services and structural problem elimination. An email from 2 weeks ago was particularly shocking. Dear Mr. Wilson, as per our conversation, I confirm that the protocol for neutralization of the dissonant element has been approved. The investment of $200,000 will cover all aspects of the operation, including animal conditioning, structural modifications, and discrete elimination of subsequent evidence. As agreed, the situation will be presented as a natural accident with no possibility of in-depth investigation. The event will be marked as an isolated tragedy, preserving the company's reputation and definitely eliminating any source of future embarrassment. Regards, Operations Manager, STS. Sarah photographed all the relevant emails, her hands trembling with anger and horror. How could the man she had married plan something so monstrous against his own daughter? She also found the formal contract with Derek, which specified his services as High Emotional Response Impact Training. The document was signed by Richard and notarized. Back in the bedroom, she found Emma still monitoring the cameras and Tyler, who had just returned, soaked but with valuable evidence. I got everything, he said, showing the photos on his cell phone, including incriminating audio recordings. And I have the emails that prove Richard hired these people specifically to... Sarah couldn't finish the sentence. Emma looked up from the tablet. To hurt me, right, Mom? The silence that followed was eloquent. Sarah knelt beside her daughter's chair. But we won't let that happen, sweetheart. We have enough evidence to stop everything. And now? Asked Tyler. Now we go to the police station first thing in the morning, said Sarah with determination. With all this material, they'll have to act. And if we don't make it there in time, worried Tyler. Emma, who had been quiet, finally spoke. Then I'll have to be there to protect people when Thunder gets scared. Emma, no, said Sarah firmly. Mom, if the police can't get there in time, I'm the only one who can calm Thunder when he panics. You saw how he reacts to the device. If I'm not there... If you're not there, you'll be alive and safe, completed. Sarah, but other people might get hurt, insisted Emma. And Thunder, too. He's not to blame for what they're doing to him. The dilemma was terrible. On one hand, they had enough evidence to prevent Richard's plan. On the other, if something went wrong, Emma might be the only one capable of preventing innocent people from getting hurt. Let's try the police first, decided Sarah, and we'll only think about other alternatives if there's no other way. But deep in her heart, she knew that Sunday would be a day that would change their lives forever, regardless of the path they chose to follow. Sunday dawned with a clear, sunny sky, in stark contrast to the storm that had fallen during the night. At 7 in the morning, Sarah was already dressed and ready to go to the police station with all the evidence they had collected. Emma, you stay here with Mrs. Jenkins until I get back, she said, organizing the documents and photos in a folder. Tyler, can you come with me to explain the technical details of what you discovered? Of course, Mrs. Wilson. But what if Mr. Wilson notices we left together? He's so focused on the event preparations that he won't even notice. Emma manipulated her tablet, observing the intense movement at the ranch through the cameras. Mom, there are a lot of people arriving down there. Big cars, people in suits. Those are the international guests, said Sarah, checking the clock. All the more reason to resolve this quickly. They left the house discreetly, but when they reached town, they discovered that the police station was practically empty. The chief was off duty, and only a young officer was on call. Ma'am, you'll have to wait until Monday to file a report of this kind, said the officer, disinterestedly flipping through the photos Sarah had brought. This looks like rich family, fighting over inheritance. No, sir, it's a planned attempted homicide, insisted Sarah. Look at the evidence. Look, lady, no offense, but these are just photos of equipment and some scribbles in a notebook. To accuse someone of attempted murder, I need something more solid. Tyler tried to explain about the sound conditioning and the plans he had discovered, but the officer seemed increasingly skeptical. Do you have any voice recordings of these people confessing to the crime? Yes, we do, said Tyler, showing the audio on his cell phone. The officer listened to a few seconds of the recording, but the quality was poor due to the rain and the enclosed environment where Tyler had recorded. Can't understand anything. They could be talking about anything. Sarah felt desperation growing. It was already almost noon, and the event would start at 3 in the afternoon. Please, at least send a patrol car to the ranch to check, she begged. Ma'am, it's Sunday. I can't mobilize a team without a court order or concrete evidence of an ongoing crime. They left the police station frustrated and with time running out. On the way back, Tyler broke the silence. Mrs. Wilson, what if we directly confronted Mr. Wilson with all this evidence? He's too smart for that, Tyler. If he realizes we know something, he might move up his plans or cancel everything and try again on another occasion. So what do we do? Sarah drove in. Silence. The weight of the decision on her shoulders. When they arrived at the ranch, the movement was intense. Luxury cars were parked in the main courtyard, and elegantly dressed people circulated around the property. Emma was waiting for them, on the porch, her face reflecting the tension of the moment. Well, will the police help? No, sweetheart, said Sarah, kneeling beside her daughter. We'll have to solve this on our own. I figured, said Emma with surprising maturity. That's why I made a decision. What decision? I'm going to stay here and protect Thunder and the people when everything happens. Emma, no, it's too dangerous. Mom, listen, said the girl, holding her mother's hands. I've been watching on the cameras all morning. There are children down there, elderly guests, people who could get hurt if Thunder panics. But you could get hurt too, or I could save everyone. Thunder listens to me, Mom. I'm the only one who can calm him down when the device starts working. Tyler approached. Emma is right, Mrs. Wilson. I've seen how Thunder reacts when she's nearby. It's like they have a special connection. And besides, continued Emma, you'll be there too. With all the tablets, cameras, and microphones, we can record everything in real time. When Derek activates the device, we'll have definitive proof. Sarah felt torn between the instinct to protect her daughter and the implacable logic of her arguments. And if something goes wrong? Then we improvise, said Emma with a brave smile, just like in the movies. At that moment, Richard appeared on the porch. Sarah, where have you been? I was looking for you earlier. We went to town to take care of some things, she replied, trying to sound natural. I hope you haven't forgotten that Emma is going to your sister's house today. Actually, Richard, I changed my mind. Emma wants to watch the event. Richard's expression changed instantly. That's out of the question. Everything is already arranged. Daddy, said Emma, using the sweetest tone she could muster, it's just this once. I promise I'll be very quiet. No, Emma. End of discussion. But why? Insisted the girl. Don't you want me to see how important our ranch is? Richard hesitated. Emma's innocent question put him in a difficult position. How could he explain his refusal without raising suspicions? It's better if you're not here today. There will be a lot of movement, a lot of noise. I don't mind noise. Daddy. Sarah observed her husband's expression, seeing for the first time signs of real nervousness on his face. Let her stay, Richard. I promise I'll make sure she doesn't disturb anything. Richard looked at the two of them, then at Tyler, who was watching the conversation in silence. All right, he finally said, but she stays away from the main track, and at the first sign of trouble. Don't worry, said Sarah. We'll stay in the guest area just watching. When Richard walked away, Emma whispered, He's nervous, more nervous than he tried to appear. Is that good or bad? Asked Tyler. I don't know, replied Sarah, but in a few hours we'll find out. The clock marked 1 in the afternoon. In 2 hours, everyone would know if they could prevent the tragedy that Richard had planned, or if Emma would be strong enough to save innocent lives when everything fell apart. One thing was certain, Sunday at Wilson Ranch would be remembered forever by everyone present, regardless of the outcome of the story that was about to unfold. 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The main courtyard of Wilson Ranch was buzzing with international journalists, investors, and local authorities. Emma observed everything from her wheelchair, strategically positioned near the track, with the tablet discreetly resting on her lap, recording every movement. Richard, impeccably dressed in his best suit, was addressing the guests about the ranch's excellence and tradition. His voice sounded confident, but Sarah noticed the sweat on his forehead despite the mild weather. "Ladies and gentlemen," he was saying, "today you will witness a demonstration of the perfect partnership between man and nature, represented by our best specimen, Thunder." Polite applause echoed through the crowd. Tyler, disguised among the staff serving the guests, kept his eyes fixed on Derek, who was preparing backstage with his equipment disguised in an ordinary toolbox. Dr. Mitchell discreetly approached Richard. "Everything's ready for the moment we agreed on," he whispered. Emma, even at a distance, managed to capture the audio through the tablet's advanced system. Her small hands trembled slightly, but her gaze remained determined. "Mom," she murmured to Sarah, "they're going to start." Now, Thunder was led to the track by two handlers, but Emma immediately noticed that something was wrong. The horse, normally majestic and controlled, showed signs of agitation. His dilated nostrils and restless movements indicated that he already sensed the presence of the sound equipment nearby. "Now, my dear guests," announced Richard with a forced smile, "a free demonstration of our magnificent Thunder." Derek, strategically positioned behind the main stands, discreetly activated his device. The ultrasonic sound, inaudible to the humans present, hit Thunder like a wave of terror. The effect was immediate and devastating. The horse began to run in desperate circles, anguished neighs echoing throughout the ranch. Some guests backed away, frightened, while others thought it was part of the presentation. "Don't worry," said Richard, trying to maintain control. "This sometimes happens when horses are very excited." But Emma knew that wasn't excitement. It was pure terror. She rose from her wheelchair with difficulty, supporting herself on her trembling legs, and began to walk slowly toward the track fence. "Emma, no!" shouted Sarah, but her daughter didn't stop. The girl reached the fence and, with a voice surprisingly firm for her physical limitations, began to speak to Thunder. "Hey, beautiful boy," she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. "I'm here. You're not alone." The horse, in the midst of his desperation, turned his head toward the familiar voice. For a moment his frantic gallop slowed. "That's right," continued Emma. "You know me. It's me, your friend. No one will hurt you while I'm here." Derek, noticing that something was interfering with his plan, increased the sound intensity. Thunder began to violently agitate again, but this time he couldn't move away from Emma, as if her presence was an anchor point amidst the chaos. It was at this moment that Tyler acted. Following the plan they had arranged, he approached Derek from behind and, pretending to trip, knocked over his toolbox. The sound device fell to the ground and abruptly turned off. Thunder's relief was instantaneous. The horse stopped running and headed directly to where Emma was, resting his large head on the fence close to the girl. "Everything's okay now," whispered Emma, extending her small hand to touch the animal's muzzle. "I won't let anyone hurt you anymore." The crowd of guests observed the scene with a mixture of amazement and emotion. The connection between the girl and the horse was so intense that even the most skeptical were impressed. Richard, however, was visibly disturbed. His plan had completely failed, and now all eyes were on Emma, exactly what he wanted to avoid. "Very nice," said one of the European journalists, "but can you explain what really happened here? This behavior doesn't seem normal for a trained horse." It was at this moment that Sarah decided to act. She approached the microphone that Richard had used for his speeches. "I can explain exactly what happened," she said, her voice echoing throughout the ranch. Richard tried to stop her, but Tyler discreetly blocked his way. "What you witnessed was not a planned demonstration," continued Sarah. "It was the result of a cruel sound conditioning experiment, conducted without the knowledge of most people present here." Murmurs of surprise spread through the crowd. "My daughter Emma has a special sensitivity toward animals," explained Sarah, "and it was through her that we discovered Thunder was being subjected to psychological torture, using sound frequencies inaudible to humans." Emma, still beside Thunder, raised her tablet. I recorded everything, she said with her clear voice. The equipment, the conversations, the tests, it's all here. Dr. Mitchell tried to hide among the guests, but Tyler pointed him out to the crowd. He's also part of the scheme, said the boy, along with Derek and, he hesitated for a moment, and with Mr. Wilson. The silence that followed was deafening. All eyes turned to Richard, who was pale and visibly shaken. One of the authorities present, a representative from the Department of Agriculture, approached. Mr. Wilson, these are very serious accusations. We need to investigate this immediately. Richard tried to deny it, but at that moment one of the guests stepped forward. He was an older man with a distinguished appearance, who had remained quiet throughout the confusion. I can confirm the accusations, he said. My name is Robert Thompson. I'm the veterinarian who cared for the horses at this ranch until I was dismissed a few weeks ago. I was the one who left the anonymous letter warning about the danger. All the pieces finally fit together. Dr. Thompson explained how he had been replaced by Dr. Mitchell without explanation and how his suspicions about changes in Thunder's treatment led him to investigate on his own. I discovered the scheme by chance, he said, but I had no way to prove it. Alone. When I learned that the girl would be present at the event, I left the warning hoping the family would take action. Richard, surrounded and cornered, finally broke down. I just wanted to protect the ranch, he said, tears running down his face. Emma is my daughter, but she complicates things. International investors don't understand. They want perfection, a flawless image. So you decided it would be easier to get rid of me? Asked Emma, her small but firm voice. Richard's silence was his confession. Sarah approached her husband, a mixture of sadness and anger in her eyes. How could you? She's our daughter, Richard. Our daughter. The authorities present took the necessary measures. Derek and Dr. Mitchell were detained, and Richard would be investigated for attempted homicide and animal cruelty. While the legal events unfolded, Emma remained beside Thunder, who was now completely calm. The horse seemed to understand that the danger had passed. One of the European investors, an elegant grey-haired lady, approached Emma. "Young lady," she said in English, then repeating in slightly accented English, "You saved many lives today, and you showed a connection with animals that is truly extraordinary." "I just did what I had to do," replied Emma shyly. "No," said the woman, "you did much more than that. You showed that the true excellence of a ranch isn't in artificial perfection, but in genuine harmony between people and animals." Weeks. Later, with Richard being prosecuted and the ranch under new management led by Sarah, life began to normalize. Emma returned to visiting Thunder daily, and her special connection with the horse became the ranch's new main attraction. Tyler was promoted to head handler, and Dr. Thompson returned to care for all the animals on the property. The ranch continued to receive international visitors, but now for the right reason, for the genuine demonstration of care and respect for animals. On a sunny afternoon, Emma was in her wheelchair beside the track, drawing in her notebook. This time, however, her drawings showed Thunder running free and happy, surrounded by smiling people and under a cloudless blue sky. "What are you drawing today?" asked Sarah, approaching. "The future," replied Emma with a smile. How will be from now on." And for the first time in a long time, Sarah believed that the future would truly be better than the past.